¿Cómo está? Welcome to Rositas Bonitas Cochinas. Today I make for you pozole, pork verde pozole. I've got a lot to show you today because I'm going to do it my way. I will follow some authentic recipe, but I do it for you like I do for me. Arriba, arriba! Okay, I'm back. Did you like my mustache? Anyway, let's start things off right. Do a little shot of tequila, you know. Keep it in with the spirit of pozole. Not gonna do a lot. Cheers, or arriba, or ay ay ay. Ay ay ay. All right, so I got a nice pork shoulder, as you can see right here. It's got a lot of marbling, is what they call it when they have the, you know, the fat in there. I'm gonna take a little bit of the fat off, and I'm gonna cut it up into chunks. And for most of the recipes that I read, what they're doing is they're just cutting it up in chunks and putting it in a stock pot and kind of sauteing it in the bottom with some onion and garlic, so forth. But what I want to do, because I am doing it my way, is I'm going to keep some of the fat on there for the flavor, of course. So just a little bit fat in the trash. This does have a nice bone in it too. Yum. That's flavor. But anyway, I started thinking about it, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to brown it first. Maybe it's a meatball thing, I don't know, but I'm gonna brown it, the little chunks, and then later I'll add it into, you know, the mix after I get everything else taken care of. But first I want to say shout out to my friend Riley, who knew that I wanted to make pozole, and she went out and bought me fresh hominy and fresh red chile peppers from Cardenas. So thank you. I am going to use them even though I am doing Verde. So I'll be back because I got to cut this whole pork up. I'll show you the size of the chunks. You can make it any size you want, of course. And then we'll start browning it in my new frying pan. Check that mother out. All right. I got rid of my 300-year-old frying pan, finally. All right. I got a lot to show you, so I'll be back. Okay. I came back because I want to show you a few things. First of all, this is what's left of the pork shoulder that I cut up. And I thought, why am I going to throw that out, right? Okay, so what I'm going to end up doing with that is I'm going to make a stock with that. I'm going to brown it with some onion and garlic and in a stock pot. And then I'll, fill it up with water after it browns. I'll season it, and I'll let it just simmer and simmer. It's gonna take a while to make this, you know. I mean, it's my first time making it, and I just have a lot of different ideas, and I'm kind of making things up as I go along. But here's the chunked up pork. You know, I cut it up in, pieces about that big. It doesn't have to be perfect squares because it's gonna just kind of, shred apart anyway. And, I just cut it up how I want to cut it up. And I'm going to brown this also and add it to the broth afterwards. And instead of using, like most of the recipes call for, is like a chicken broth or beef broth or whatever, well, I'm going to be using a freshly made pork broth. How about that? You don't see that in the store now, do you? All right, so as soon as I start browning this and I start getting the stock ready, I'll come back, all right? So you can see what I got going there. Okay, So what I'm doing is, like I said, I'm gonna use the rest of that pork shoulder with the bone and some more of that fat and everything, and I'm gonna braise it or brown it, and I'm gonna make a stock out of it. And anytime you're gonna make a stock, you wanna use what they call a mirepoix, which consists of onions, carrots, and celery, typically. If you wanna call it the Trinity, you add green bell peppers. But in this case, I don't have celery, I only have carrots and onion, but I do have a green chili that I bought at the store, so I'm gonna use that. And I did make it in bigger pieces because afterwards, I'll probably toss out the carrots and the onion after I strain it, but I want to save these because I'm going to put it in with the tomatillo and my onion and chili. So when I'm making my, not a broth, it's not a broth, but you know, it is the brothy part of the pozole. So I got my olive oil, of course. Ooh, it's nice and hot. Let me get that sauteing over here. Make it nice and brown and almost caramelized. And then I'll add that pork shoulder in there and take it from there. One thing that I do, give that a stir. A couple of things I want to mention. Something that makes the pork, or any meat for that matter, even bacon, easier to cut is what I do is I put it in the freezer, and when I defrost it, you know, pretty well, but I leave it to where it's just a little frozen still in the middle, and so when you're cutting it, it's not hard to cut. You can use, you know, a decent knife, and you can make your way through it because it's still just a little bit frozen. Another thing is when you're working with any meat, pork, chicken, beef, make sure when you're done, like I did, when I was done cutting up the pork, I sterilized my whole cleaning station all over again. I make sure always that I have what I need out. I've got my sauce pot, my frying pan. I have another frying pan and another sauce pot over there that I'm going to use. I've got my crock pot out. I've got everything out that I need. So when I start doing everything, wait. I have my 500-year-old processor right there that still runs like a charm. And so that way I don't have to keep digging for everything as I go. So I'm gonna get that rolling. I'm gonna get the pork shoulder bone in there. And after I get everything browned up and everything, I'll come back and we'll talk more about it. Okay, so I've been letting this, you know, brown in the sauce pot for a while now. And as you can see, nice and brown. You see the brown on the bottom? That's what you'd call money right there. So now I'm going to add the water and you'll hear it sizzle, and then what it's going to do is deglaze the bottom, and everything that's on the bottom is now going to be floating inside the juicy stock. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Nice. So another thing, like I looked at a lot of recipes for pozole, and you know, I'm taking all of the spices that they do use, oregano, cumin, garlic, salt, pepper, of course, and I'm not going to make too much stock because I'm only going to fill up the crock pot. But anyway, I'm going to let this cook now for a while and let it marinate, meld all together. But you know, so I take all the spices, and do I add them when they tell me to add them? No. I put a little bit in here. I did oregano, cumin, salt, pepper. And when I brown my my pork, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna season it because if you've been paying attention, I like to layer my spices and my flavor. I don't just spice or layer one time. To me, that's not enough because you're adding new ingredients all the time, right? So you want to make sure that you season everything. I took my green chile out of there. It's nice and wilty, and I'm gonna blend that in a minute with some other ingredients that are typical for a pozole verde or verde pozole, however you want to slice it. I'll be back. Okay, so now I'm gonna start putting together like the middle of the recipe, which is the chile, the onion, the tomatillo. So it's kind of like the sauce of the pozole. Again, I'm doing this my way. I'm not reading a recipe or anything. I did read recipes and I got the gist of everything, and then I started coming up with different ways that I wanted to do it and how I wanted to see it look. So I don't know if you're familiar with the tomatillo, but they come in a husk. The husk and the stem are poisonous. So you make sure that you take that husk and the stem out. You see? There's the stem and the husk. And it's sticky. So I'm gonna put them in a colander and I'm gonna rinse them all off. And I don't like the skin on the tomatillo, or any tomato really for that matter. So I've got some water boiling over there, and I'm going to drop the tomatillos in the water when it starts to boil, and then I'm gonna peel the skin off. You only need to leave it in there for a minute. You know, you'll see the skin start to bubble off of the tomato. But what you do is what we call score. So you're gonna make one line and another line on the bottom, not the stem side, but the bottom. So when you drop it off, it's almost gonna just peel right off. Okay, so I'll get that rolling and we'll come back with that. Okay, I'm back. So anyway, I've got my stock boiling. You wanna bring it to a boil and then you'll let it simmer and just let it do its thing. Marinate. I've got my water over here boiling for the tomatillos. And the first time I ever worked with tomatillos was when I used to work at Alexis Park. I was a cook there. And I did just about everything there. I worked breakfast, the gourmet room, banquets, you name it, I did it. I think it was Cinco de Mayo or something, and we had to make some sort of a green chili verde sauce. And I made it. And it came out so good that the president of the hotel came back into the kitchen and asked who made it and said it was the best he ever had. So even though I don't remember a lot from those days, I kind of still remember a little bit about what I put in that. So I'm gonna, try to do it the same way. I just want you to see, look at that beautiful brown stock boiling right there. Isn't that awesome? I've got my water boiling right here, and I'm gonna put the tomatillos in there and then skin them. I also have some red chili that I've been soaking nice and soft. I'm gonna add that into the mix, and we'll see what happens when we come back. Better pay attention. Okay, so we're moving on to our next step, which is the base of the whole pozole. The whole pozole. Anyway, here's the tomatillos. You gotta let them cool off a little bit before you start peeling the skin off because they're hot. They've been in boiling water. You can see that they're kind of parboiled now. And see where I had the score? I just peel, the skin just peels right off. Just peels right off. Peels right off. See? That easy? Look at that. Bada bing, bada boom. So I'm gonna do that to all of them. Pull that out of there. I've got some garlic And I also have my, hold on a second. In my food processor, I have onion, I have the green chili, and I've got some red chili that I've been soaking for quite some time. And I've got the stock looking awesome right here. Check that out. And I gotta finish peeling the tomatillo. And then instead of just twirling it all together in my food processor, I'm gonna actually saute it. You'll see, I've got it all in my head how I'm gonna do it. So I will share it with you when we get back. Okay, so I'm back. I have in my trusty Stone Age food processor, as you can see, I got it layered: onion, red chili, green chili, tomatillo, garlic. You can never have enough garlic. It don't matter what you're cooking, Italian, Mexican, whatever. You always want garlic. So I'm gonna blend this up, and the reason why I'm going to saute it, sauteing it isn't the right word, but I'm just gonna put it in a frying pan, heat it up, and I'm gonna season it. So I'm doing more layers, right? So, see what this looks like in a second. Looking good. Wow. So this is the base of the pozole. Check that out. Right? Colorful. I mean, it's verde, but it doesn't have to be all green, right? We can add a little bling, rojo bling in there. All right, so like I said, I'm gonna take that, I'll probably process it a little bit more so it's not chunky. And then I'll put it in the frying pan, heat it up. I'm going to season it. And then the next thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna brown the pork, and then we're gonna start putting it all together. I'm gonna strain the broth and put it all together in the crock pot and let it simmer and cook, because that pork, I want it to be fork tender. And just so you know too, like with tomatillos, they're tart, okay? When you get your chile verde at a restaurant or in a store in a jar, you can taste that tartness in the tomatillo. So I kind of want to try to season it enough to cook that out, because I don't want anything tasting tangy. Another thing too is, don't forget, in between everything that you haven't been seeing, the behind the scenes, I've been cleaning everything as I go. I do one thing, I clean, I do another thing, I clean, so that at the end, you know, first of all, it's sanitary, and then there's not a lot to clean up at the end. All right? Be right back. Okay, I'm back. So, if they could possibly invent smell-o-vision, it would be amazing. This smells so good. I can't even begin to explain it. So let's come over here and take a look at what we got. First, we got the brats right here. Check that out. Oh, man, does that smell good. I guarantee you, ain't nobody making pozole like this. Not even in the restaurants. They are not making it like this. My only hope is that when it's all said and done, it tastes good. I don't know, it's my version. It's authentic. I'm using authentic ingredients, right? But I'm putting my own twist on it, which I do with everything that I cook. And 9 times out of 10, it comes out fantastic. Fantastico. That one time, I don't remember what it was, so forget about it, right? All right. So I'm gonna let that cook down a little bit. Again, I wanna try to cook the tartness out of the tomatillo, if that's possible, we'll see. I got my broth stock, my pork stock, homemade, marinating over there. I'm gonna start browning up the pork chunks that I have. They're in the refrigerator. Wanna make sure it stays refrigerated. And then, this is the hominy. Check that out. Fresh hominy. Okay, that's like the kicker right there. So I will be back. I'm gonna have a beer. Okay, so here's a little better view of everything that we got going on here. Yes, I am drinking a beer. Hello. I've got my pork that I cut up in chunks. I've got my frying pan getting nice and hot, baby, with some olive oil in there. I've got that beautiful, the base. That's the base. And then I've got my stock back here, baby. That's what I'm talking about. It's coming together, peeps. It really is. I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back. And now I'm gonna start browning the pork. You know what they say? It's not drinking alone if the dogs are here. Something like that. Anyway, here we go. Nice and hot. Yeah. Don't you love that? Sizzle, baby, sizzle. That's what I'm talking about. This is my brand new frying pan. That on another day, let me tell you, it holds a lot of meatballs. A lot of meatballs. Oh yeah. I did keep some of the fat on here for flavor. And I'm not gonna cook the pork all the way, okay? I'm only browning it. Because what's gonna happen is it's gonna cook the rest of the way in the crock pot with all the other ingredients. Don't forget to clean this really good. And now I use my wooden spoon because I've got a brand new frying pan. So here's the deal. We're gonna cook this really good. I'm gonna brown it. And really, just like my meatballs, that ends up finishing up in the sauce, we're gonna finish it up in the stock. And this magnificent stuff right there, I'll tell you what, I could eat that just with some chips. All right, we gotta let the heat come back up. Once the heat comes back up, it'll start browning really good just the way I want it. And gosh, we're pretty much almost done. We're gonna be putting it all together. I'm gonna let it simmer in the crock pot for at least a couple of hours. I want the pork to just fall apart. That's exactly what I want. All right, we'll be back. When I say we, I mean we. Okay, I'm back. Arriba! Okay, so it's like we're so close right now, right? So here's the pork. It's nice and brown. It's not as brown as like how I make my meatballs, only because there was a lot of fat mixed in the pork, and not a lot, but enough to keep it juicy. If it wasn't so juicy, I could get that brown, crusty, like almost like not a deglazing thing, but you know how the bottom of the pan looks, and when I brown my meatballs really good, that's the look I was going for, but it didn't happen. So what am I gonna do, right? So anyway, I'm gonna add the pork. This one's gonna be a long one, okay? Here's the pork. It's going all the juice in it. Oh, sorry. In the crock pot. One pan empty. Here, let me bring this a little closer because you guys got to see this, right? So, I actually have my camera stand that Margaret and Darcy bought me that I love and I use, and it has a remote. So I can turn things on and off. I don't have to touch my camera every time. Here is this amazing base that I've made. Whew, this shit is good. That's going in there. Man, I'll tell you what. I'm scraping as much off the bottom of the pan as I can. I want every last bit of that in there. All right. I'm sorry, I keep stepping on Big B's tail. There's another pan, empty. So, and then I've got the stock. I mean, it hasn't been cooking long enough to create a really, really deep flavor, but you know, long enough. I mean, it's better. I was going to use a store-bought chicken or vegetable low sodium broth, but I just as soon use this. I'm going to take the carrots and the celery out of there, and then I'm going to pour it through a strainer, and I'll show you all that when we come back. All right. Okay, so I strained out the carrots, that big, beautiful pork shoulder bone with some leftover goodens on there. So now I've got a strainer and a pot that's clean. Everything's clean. And I'm gonna strain it through there so I get all the rest of the nuggets out of there. All right. And that's it. I mean, you gotta look at this. It's like amazing. Check it out. It's a nice pork stock. Look at the brown. I mean, it's beautiful. So anyway, I'm gonna pour that in the crock pot. Just enough. I mean, really just enough. You gotta check it out. So anyway, check that out. There it is. I'm gonna stir that up. I'm gonna turn that on. And when we come back, you know, in an hour or so, you won't know it because it's just gonna all go together. We will have a bowl of pozole. See you in a bit. Hola! Thank you for tuning in to my final flavor factor pointer of the day. I have a lot of words that begin with the letter F that are my favorite. Flavor is one of them. And anyway, let's talk about the hominy, okay? If you're going to use fresh hominy, do not pour that directly into your simmering pozole. It needs to soften, and it'll never soften in time. It'll be nothing but little corn nuts floating around in your pozole, okay? So you need to boil, how you say, the crap out of it. You can either use your freshly made pork broth, or you can use chicken broth, vegetable broth, and I always use low sodium because you remember you can always add more salt. Okay? Wait for it to become nice and plump before you add it to your simmering pozole. If you don't want to do fresh hominy, go to the store, get some canned Juanita's hominy, pour it in a colander, rinse it, and you can pour it right into your simmering pozole. Remember, hominy is a bland fruit product. It will always absorb any flavor that you put it into, okay? So thank you for tuning in to my final flavor factor pointer of the day. Take that to the bank and cash it. All right, you guys, here we are, hours later, and we've got the pozole. See that? I'm going to turn it around. Hold on. Oh, I can't. So there's the pozole, nice and hot and steamy, right? And then I've got my garnish. I'll put my avocado, some cilantro, some radish, right? And some crema. Where is it? There it is. Some crema. And I'll put a little dabble-do-ya on there. And there it is, folks. Pozole! And I already tasted it, and it's delicious. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Arriba, arriba!